Picture this, 2018. Crusader unveils the Mercury Star Runner and the crowd goes wild. A sleek, asymmetric courier ship pitched as the Millennium Falcon of Star Citizen. Built-in scanning suite, massive data running servers, hidden compartments, a cockpit that practically begs you to shout, "Punch it, Chewie." I was sold, and I bet you were too. We all bought into the dream of the Star Runner. It was a smuggler's fantasy, dripping with tons of non-IP infringing Star Wars nostalgia, and even cyberpunk flair. Server rooms that glow. A tunnel network straight out of Coruscant's underbelly. A secret hatch hidden beneath a hollow chess table. The MSR didn't just have style, it had soul. But here's the twist I didn't want to admit for years. In practice, the Mercury Star Runner is the most disappointing ship I own. Let's talk about why. Grab a drink. This one hurts. Now, just so we're clear, yeah, I'm gonna hit this ship pretty hard. But not because I hate it, it's because I love it. This was one of my most anticipated ships, and that's exactly why the flaws sting. We're starting with the pain points because I want to show you what's not working, so we can actually appreciate what does. And by the end, we'll discuss changes that could make it shine. And despite it all, it's in my never melt pile for a reason. I'm not giving up on this ship. But let's not sugarcoat it. The Mercury Star Runner is the Diet Coke of medium ships. Stylish, familiar, even kind of iconic, but when you get past the branding, it just doesn't deliver. And the one job it was supposed to excel at? Completely MIA. Data running. That was the Star Runner's marquee role. The whole pitch behind this ship was encrypted drives, firewall shredding scanners, and high-stakes digital smuggling across hostile space. But in reality, all of that is still pure fiction. Data running doesn't exist in Star Citizen. Not yet. We don't even have a hint that it's coming anytime soon. At last year's CitizenCon, data running got maybe half a sentence in a panel. And that silence? It speaks volumes. Right now, every one of the ship's signature features is decorative. The scanning console, the glowing server rooms, purely cosmetic. Sit down, push buttons, nothing happens. It's like owning a Ferrari without an engine. It looks awesome, but like a certain moisture farmer once said, looks like I'm going nowhere. And listen, I know my audience. You're sharp. You'd call me out in a heartbeat if I pretended this ship could do something it can't. So let's be honest. The MSR's identity is in limbo, and it's been there for years. This was supposed to be the hacker smuggler's dream ship, and the owners were to be modern takes on Han Solo moving data and evading Imperial patrols. Instead, it's just another small-capacity cargo runner with a cool interior and no real purpose. Some say data running won't show up until post-launch. Honestly, that tracks. It's a niche gameplay loop that's clearly taken a backseat to big-ticket features like engineering and mining. As far as I'm aware, there are only 2 ships even built for it. And that's fine, I understand that priorities shift. But if you back the Mercury dreaming of spy missions and digital theft, you've been left holding the bag. If you're enjoying this video, please hit like and share it. And if you're not already, consider subscribing. The only way we can grow this community is for more people to discover the video. I've been putting real effort into these videos, we just lack exposure now. Captain's crew, I really appreciate you. Maybe you don't care about data running. Maybe smuggling is more your thing. Great. Except, the Star Runner is kind of mediocre there too. Yes, it has smuggler tunnels. And yes, they're cool in concept. But in reality, they're mostly a waste of space. They don't give you any gameplay advantage. NPC borders don't exist yet. And if another player's on your ship, you're probably already screwed. The crawl spaces just chew up interior volume and make the MSR bigger than it needs to be, meaning it's a giant target in a fight. The whole hide from pirates in the walls fantasy sounds great on paper, but it falls apart when you actually look at how Star Citizen works. And after thinking on it, I think I can finally put my finger on why. If you know me, you know I'm a Star Wars Galaxies fanatic. That game had plenty of flaws, but it nailed some big picture design ideas. Raph Koster, the lead designer, was famously against adding a global vendor search. Why? Because perfect information breaks immersion. If you can search every store in the galaxy from a single UI window, you never discover anything. You never stumble across a remote player city with a weird little shop full of all types of different items and bizarre decorations. You just min-max your way to the cheapest thing and move on. It's efficient, but it kills the magic. And that same problem applies here. Every player knows the MSR has tunnels. They're not hidden. There's no mystery. You're not outsmarting anyone when the first place they look is the tunnel. And if those tunnels can somehow trick NPCs when players know better, that just breaks the world. Star Citizen needs consistency between what players and NPCs understand. If the AI doesn't know about the crawl spaces but every backer does, immersion collapses. Perfect information means that there are no secrets in the verse. So yeah, I love the idea of smuggling tunnels, but they just don't work in a multiplayer sandbox where everyone knows exactly what ship you're flying and exactly where the hidey holes are. That said, I do think there's a way to make smuggling work in Star Citizen. I touched on this briefly in my 10 Things Star Citizen Needs video, but it deserves a deeper dive. I've got a whole video planned about how I think smuggling should work, especially when it comes to hiding cargo, fooling scanners, and providing an alternative to secret compartments. So if that sounds like your kind of fix, make sure you're subbed. You won't want to miss it. Let's talk about one of the Mercury Star Runner's most infamous design flaws. It's got one way in and one way out, the rear ramp. No side hatch, no top exit, no clever smuggler escape route hidden behind a panel, just the ramp. CIG actually admitted this was an oversight. John Crew, the vehicle director at CIG, straight up said not giving the Star Runner a second entrance was a mistake and that they might fix it one day. Not exactly reassuring, considering this thing made it through concept, white box, gray box, and final art passes without someone raising a hand and saying, "Hey, what if the ramp is blocked?" You ever get camped at your ramp in Jumptown? Yeah, not fun, and that's the problem. In gameplay terms, this can be a death sentence. If someone's waiting at your ramp, you're screwed. If the ship flips on its back, you're not getting out. There's no roof hatch, no ladder, no clever escape. It's honestly baffling that a ship designed for smuggling and quick getaways doesn't have a single emergency exit. And speaking of emergencies, there are 0 escape pods. None. So much for being a blockade runner. You're telling me the Millennium Falcon's spiritual successor just hopes for the best under fire? When death of a spaceman kicks in, you're going down with the ship, like it or not. It all makes the Mercury Star Runner feel like a ship where style beat out substance. A beautiful, badass design, but one where a few critical gameplay details slipped right through the cracks. And look, I've been ragging on it, but don't get me wrong, the MSR's interior is undeniably cool. The first time you step inside, it's like walking through a sci-fi collector's dream. Star Wars-style cockpit doors that swoosh open, cozy crew quarters, a common area with that hollow chest table, glowing server racks humming, and even a whole network of Jeffries tubes crisscrossing the ship. If it's the Falcon, it's Lando's version. Sleek, stylish, and way too clean to be Han's. And honestly, I think that works. It feels like a ship that was meant to impress both smugglers and clients. But once the novelty wears off, you start to notice a lot of that space doesn't actually do anything. It's cool to look at, sure, but from a gameplay perspective, it's not earning its footprint. Compare it to other ships in the same size class and you'll see them squeezing out more cargo, more guns, more modular utility. One area where the Mercury Star Runner was expected to shine is cargo hauling. After all, if it can't run data, it might as well run goods, right? On paper, the MSR can carry 114 SCU of cargo, more than a Constellation Andromeda at 96 SCU and almost on par with the Freelancer Max at 120 SCU, which is a dedicated freighter. It even has a solid rear ramp and enough ground clearance to fit something like an Ursa rover. But once you park a vehicle back there, you've basically used up the entire space. The reality, though, is that using all 114 SCU is practically impossible with the current cargo system. And to be fair, this isn't just a Star Runner problem. It affects all legacy ships designed before physicalized cargo was implemented. With the new system, you can't just fill the hold. Cargo needs to physically exist and fit. Most contracts use standard-sized crates, often 8 SCU, and the Star Runner's cargo hold layout just doesn't accommodate them well. You'll run into awkward gaps, wasted ceiling space, and that classic Star Citizen moment where the last box just won't clear the doorway. Players have run the numbers. One hauler found that even the Freelancer Max, which should be a cargo champ, only fits about 64 SCU out of its 120 if you stick to large boxes. The MSR suffers the same issue. Realistically, you'll get maybe 72 SCU loaded with 8 SCU crates, and after that, you'd need to mix in smaller boxes, which sounds fine until you realize those tiny crates are a logistical nightmare and not worth the time to load. The Star Runner's just cosplaying as a freighter. Fine for small jobs, loot runs, or light missions, but if you're trying to hit full capacity and actually make money, you're better off with a different ship, and the Argo Raft is nearly impossible to beat, as I detail in this video. The link's in the description, check it out. Performance is a tougher one to pin down because, as a wise little green man once said, always in motion is the future. Star Citizen's flight model changes often, and we're on the cusp of another major overhaul with ditching master modes. So I'm not going to waste your time with a bunch of stats that'll be outdated by next patch. What I can tell you is this: most new ships in Star Citizen follow a pretty familiar pattern. They launch with major power creep, aka the new hotness, and then get quickly nerfed into balance a patch or two later. But not the Star Runner. When it dropped, it felt like someone on the dev team was at war with the marketing team. It released dead on arrival, the worst medium ship in the game by a wide margin. It was slow, handled like a refrigerator strapped to a forklift, had paper-thin shields, and guzzled hydrogen and quantum fuel. Over time, thankfully, the MSR was rebalanced into a pretty decent medium ship handling-wise. Its quicker now handles well enough for its size, and its shield capacity has been significantly upgraded. Still, we're in a weird limbo period with combat. The upcoming flight model changes will shake everything up, but right now, it's hard to say where the MSR really stands. Let me give you an example. Master Blaster and I were flying to Hathor on Daymar in his Star Runner. He was piloting, I was in the top turret. We ran into a pilot griefing parked ships like an absolute clown. I stripped his shields easily, as the Star Runner's turrets can bring some decent heat, but couldn't land enough sustained DPS to finish the job. Meanwhile, his ballistic cannons chewed up our cockpit. Our shields never dropped, but the ship still exploded. The current meta. Shields don't mean much when ballistics bypass them and your cockpit has the structural integrity of a soda can. Now, this is one of those fights the Star Runner should win. Two crewed players versus a solo fighter, especially with solid piloting and turret coordination, but it just can't seal the deal right now. Physicalized armor will eventually help, but in its current form, the MSR is best used for avoiding fights rather than winning them. It's not helpless, of course. Crew the turrets, fly smart, and you can fend off most pirates running lasers, but you're not reenacting the Falcon versus Star Destroyers anytime soon. Try to weave around a crewed Polaris and you're likely to end up smoking debris in low orbit before you make a single pass over the ship. And let's talk about flight handling. The MSR might look like a sleek Delta Wing freighter, but don't let the silhouette fool you, it's a flying brick. And it's dense. Even unloaded, it's one of the heavier ships in its class. When the flight model starts accounting for mass more seriously, that weight's going to matter. A lot. So yeah, in today's meta, the Mercury Star Runner can survive, but it's all about picking your battles and knowing when to run. Now look, I'd be a real dick if I spent all this time dragging the Star Runner through the mud without offering any solutions. One of the other creators I follow, Guy in the Eames lounge chair, made a smart observation about the Banu Merchantman. It's taking years to develop, and CIG won't get much ROI from it because most people already own one. I'm not totally convinced that's a big issue. Sunk cost is sunk cost, but if it is a concern for CIG, the Star Runner could fall into the same trap when it comes time for a rework. So here's my fix. Create a new variant that brings in new money. Something that expands on the ship's identity, but with a real gameplay focus. Let me pitch you the Crusader Mercury Blockade Runner. Same silhouette, same slick style, but redesigned to actually run real blockades, not just roleplay ones. The idea is to lean into cargo hauling while keeping the ship's profile and vibe intact, just restructured to make better use of the space. Here's how we do it. Option 1, remove the crawl tunnels entirely and repurpose that volume into extra room for 8 SCU containers. Practical, but maybe a little boring. Option 2, which is my favorite, add 2 meters of height to the hull and give the Mercury true 2-deck architecture instead of the weird 1.5 decks we've got now. That opens up real potential. With that extra height, the living space could be stacked vertically, think tighter, more functional crew quarters below the cockpit corridor. There's a lot of unused real estate around and under the bridge. Think Serenity from Firefly with ladders leading to crew compartments, everything packed and functional. Ditch the server room and scanning station, they're just eye candy right now, and give us a proper cargo hold. Boom. You've doubled its utility without ruining the layout. And then, while we're at it, let's fix the egregious single exit issue by adding a ladder hatch, like the Zeus. Maybe even add a jettisonable cockpit escape pod, similar to the one Lando had installed in the mandibles of the Falcon. You know, just in case. CIG is clearly deep in their variant era, so this feels like low-hanging fruit. The base Star Runner stays untouched for data running down the road, but the new Blockade Runner gives us a gameplay-ready, cargo-forward version of the ship that actually fulfills its name and makes CIG a few bucks in the process. Everybody wins. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you like the ship as it is now? What would you change or add? There are no wrong ideas, I genuinely want to hear your take. Bringing this all together, you can probably sense my conflicted feelings about the Mercury Star Runner. I still love this ship in concept. It's one of the coolest designs in the game. It has loads of personality. It promised a gameplay loop that spoke to the space nerd in me. When I walk around my ship, I feel like a rogue space captain gearing up for a high-stakes smuggling run. The fantasy of the ship is amazing, but as a practical choice, the Star Runner has been incredibly disappointing. So many clever ideas just don't translate to meaningful gameplay. It's like the ship is too cool for its own good, and that holds it back. For the price, both in dollars and in-game credits, a lot of ships now outclass it. Even some newer ones from the same manufacturer, like the Spirit series, or ships like the Zeus Mark II, are starting to eat its lunch. As someone who owns and wanted to main this ship, it honestly sucks to say all this. I remember when I first got the Star Runner, I was sure this was going to be my go-to. But now, it mostly gathers dust in my hangar while I take out ships that are just better. I keep hoping that someday it will get the love it deserves, that data running will arrive, that the interior will get touched up, that the design will finally catch up to the vision. The ship has potential. That's not in doubt. It just hasn't been realized yet. Until then, I've got to be honest. The Mercury Star Runner is a beautiful disappointment. It's the ship I want to love unconditionally, but every time I fly it, I walk away thinking about what could have been. If you're thinking about picking one up, just know what you're really buying. A concept. Would I recommend it? That depends. If you're a dreamer like me, someone who buys ships because of what they represent, then yeah, you'll probably enjoy it. At least for a while. But if you're the pragmatic type, chasing value and utility, this ship will probably endlessly frustrate you. Still, I'm not giving up on it. Not yet. I'm holding out hope that the Star Runner's day will come. Maybe next year, maybe the year after. Maybe those tunnels will matter. Maybe we'll finally get the ship we all imagined when we saw that first teaser image. But as of right now in this captain's log, I've got to say it. The Mercury Star Runner is my biggest disappointment in Star Citizen so far. I wanted the Falcon, but I got a turkey. A really cool looking, endearing turkey, but a turkey nonetheless. Here's hoping this bird gets to spread its wings someday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the verse.